Hey everybody, and welcome to part 2 of this Getting Started with SketchUp tutorial. And we're going to go over groups and components and how to use the outliner window to stay organized in your model, which is really important. I think this is probably the most important thing to learn when you're using SketchUp. So groups and components are used whenever you want to isolate geometry from another part of your model. So if you're making anything beyond a simple box, you're going to want to use groups or components. So here you can see this simple birdhouse I created, and I have each part of it separated into either a group or a component. So you can see when I click on any one of these parts, it selects this entire set of geometry, so you can tell that it's within a group. If none of this was in a group, I would click it and it would just select the face, or I'd click it and it would just select the edge. And you can open up any group really easily. You just double click and now it goes, it activates that group, and you can see that very easily with this dotted line that's around it. And anything that's not in that group is kind of like grayed out a little bit. So it's awesome because you know exactly what's in the group, and you don't really get confused with all the other parts of your model when you're trying to just work on this one part. So it's a great way to stay organized, and it just keeps things from sticking to one another. So a lot of times, if I wanted to move this roof up, if it wasn't in a group, all of this stuff here would stick to it, and it would make it really hard to move around. So it's just a really good way to keep everything in order. Now, the other great thing about SketchUp is the outliner window, and I'll pull that up real quick. You just go to Window and Outliner, and this is like, I always keep this window open because this shows me everything that's in my model. Well, anything that's in a group that's within my model. So typically in SketchUp, when you create something, it tends to stick to anything else. So I'll just create a couple of boxes here. And if I select this box and move it over here and snap it, if I then try to move it, it's now stuck to the other box that I just, snapped it to. And, that might be what you were trying to do, but most of the time you want things to kind of be independent of each other. So let me show you how to make a group. All you have to do is triple click whatever you want to select all of it, or you could also drag a selection box, and then you right click and click Make Group. And you can see right here in the outliner it has made this group, and we'll call it box A, and then we'll do the same thing over here. We'll make a group on that one and call it box B. So now if we move this box and snap it to box B, if we want to move it, it's not stuck to the other box. In fact, you can put it right in the middle here of the other box, and they're both independent of each other. These groups do not affect each other. As far as they're concerned, the other one doesn't exist. So it's a great way to isolate geometry from one another. So you can see by default it names all these different groups just the name group, and you can leave it like that, but what I like to do is right click and rename it something that makes sense. So I'll name that top, I'll name this front, what's this one here, the bottom. We can right click, rename that bottom. And these components, the wall components, are already named wall. And then I have the back. And so you can see I just kind of clicked through my outliner and it automatically selects the appropriate group or component inside the model just by clicking the name from the outliner. And just to tell you what the difference between a component and a group is, components are identical to each other. So this wall on the left side and the wall on the right side are the same thing. So whenever you have something in your model that is going to be duplicated and you know that they're going to be identical, you're going to want to use a component. And the reason for that is, watch what happens when I go ahead and open up this component and try to edit. Let's say I'm going to use the push-pull tool to push this front out. You can see the other component is being edited at the same time. So that's a huge time saver when you are working on, things that are identical to each other throughout your model. So you create it once, you duplicate it as many times as you want, and you still retain the ability to make changes to that component, and it'll propagate throughout your model, and all of those components will change as well. So here's another great way to use groups. You can see we have this tree here, and let's say we wanted to put this birdhouse and hang it on the tree. Now what we would have to do is select each part of this birdhouse by holding down Control and clicking all the different components and then moving it to the tree. Or what we could do is, once we build something and select all the parts that make it up, you can right click and make that a group. So you can have groups within a group, and you can see over here on the outliner, we'll just rename this birdhouse, and you can expand and collapse that as much as you want. And that's really great to do. You really want to try to organize your model as much as you can. That way, instead of just having a huge list of all the different parts in your model, you can kind of group them together and make it so it's not a burden to try to organize and figure out where stuff is. And then check this out. So now that we have this this birdhouse all together, we just click once and it selects all of those things that were in that make up that birdhouse. And then we can grab the move tool and come over here and hang that birdhouse on the tree. So let's say I make a copy of this birdhouse, and keep in mind that each of these birdhouses are groups. They're not components. So you can see right here the outliner has created a copy, and if I wanted to edit one of these birdhouses, the other one is not going to change. Alright, so let's say I am deleting the roof for whatever reason. I'm deleting the roof off of that birdhouse. The other one hasn't changed at all. Okay, so when you create a group, it's completely unique to itself, and changes do not propagate through any other groups that are similar. Now on the other hand, if we take this group, right click it, and select Make Component, now this has become a component. You can see the differentiator is the it's got like 4 little squares. That means it's a component. A solid square means it's a group. So now that this is a component, we can do the same thing. Make a copy of it, bring it down, and we'll just pull it out a little bit. Now when I open up this component up here, you can see the changes are being made down there. Okay, so if we wanted to delete that roof, both components are going to be the same thing, and it doesn't matter which one you select or edit. I could take this one and edit it, and it's going to make the changes to all components that are identical. So the decision to use either a group or a component is up to you. I personally use groups more often than components because I've had times where I've been making stuff that at first I thought it was going to be, I was going to have unique copies throughout my model, and I make a component, and then a couple hours later I go and change one and forget that I have copies of it somewhere else, and I end up changing an original component that I didn't intend to. So I tend to stick with groups, but one trick, I'll show you one more trick. If you have so we have this component here, we'll make a copy of it and pull it out, and let's say we put this birdhouse here and we know it's going to stay there. We can right click it and click lock. That will protect you from accidentally making changes down here, because watch what happens. If you try to edit this, it'll give you a warning and say some of the selected components are locked. Would you like to unlock the components or leave them locked and make this selected component unique? So this kind of gives you a warning and lets you know, hey, wait a minute, you have other components that match this one. If you make changes to it, you're going to have to unlock the other ones. Are you sure you want to do that, or do you want to make this one unique? So that's kind of nice, if you want to get in the habit of doing that. You can make, once you get something set, you can lock it really easily, right click and lock, and then you can also unlock it very easily. So that's it. I mean, this is probably the most important thing that you should learn when you're trying to pick up SketchUp. Groups, components, and the outliner. And if you'd like to learn more about SketchUp, visit mastersketchup.com.